You. Come here. Now.
The words cut through the silence like a blade. Elena's hand froze on the doorknob of the servants' quarters, her heart lurching into her throat. She knew that voice, cold, absolute, belonging to a man who didn't ask twice. Kang Jae-Hyun. Seoul's shadows had a king, and he ruled from a mansion perched above the city, like a predator watching its prey. For 3 years, Elena had moved through his world invisibly, cleaning rooms he rarely entered, preparing meals he barely touched, existing only in the periphery of his violence. She'd perfected the art of being unseen. Until tonight. She turned slowly. Down the corridor, framed by the doorway of his bedroom, he stood. Blood stained the collar of his white shirt. His jaw was tight, bruised along the left side. A gun rested on the nightstand behind him, and beyond that, the city lights of Seoul glowed like embers through floor-to-ceiling windows. He wasn't looking at her like a servant. He was looking at her like a lifeline. I said, now, Elena. Her legs moved before her mind caught up. She'd learned early that hesitation was dangerous in this house. Men who hesitated around Kang Jae-Hyun ended up in the Han River. She stepped into his bedroom, a space she'd cleaned 100 times but never occupied. It smelled of leather, expensive cologne, and something metallic she recognized as blood. The door clicked shut behind her. Not locked. Just closed. Sir, are you hurt? Her voice came out smaller than she intended. Sit. He gestured to the edge of his bed. She obeyed, hands folded in her lap, eyes down. Her uniform felt too thin suddenly, the air too thick. Jae-Hyun moved to the window, his back to her. For a long moment he said nothing. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. Somewhere in the city, another crime was unfolding, another body being discovered. Seoul never slept, and neither did its monsters. Do you know how long I've been awake? His voice was quieter now, almost human. No, sir. 72 hours. He turned to face her. Up close, the exhaustion was brutal. Dark circles carved shadows under his eyes. A fresh cut split his lower lip. Every time I close my eyes, I see the gun aimed at my head. Every time I start to drift, I feel the betrayal all over again. Elena's throat tightened. She'd heard whispers in the kitchen, an assassination attempt 3 nights ago. His own lieutenant, bought by the Yakuza. Jae-Hyun had killed the traitor with his bare hands, but the paranoia lingered like smoke. I need someone here. He stepped closer. Just stay. Her pulse thundered. She understood what those words meant in a house like this. What men like him expected from women like her. Sir, I don't think. I'm not asking you to think. His tone sharpened, then softened again, something flickering behind the coldness. Everyone who gets close to me dies, Elena. But you're already here. You've been here 3 years, and you're still breathing. That means something. Before I tell you what happened next, subscribe to Mystic Tale by Luna and comment where you're watching from. She looked up at him, really looked, beyond the reputation, beyond the blood and the brutality. She saw the bullet wound poorly bandaged beneath his shirt, the way his hands trembled slightly when he thought she wasn't watching, the exhaustion that made him look less like a king and more like a man drowning. Just tonight, she whispered. Then we forget this happened. His laugh was bitter. If only forgetting was that easy. Rain began to patter against the windows. The city noise muted into a distant hum. He sat beside her, not touching, just existing in the same space. For the first time in 72 hours, his shoulders dropped slightly. Tell me something, he said. Something real. Not the lies people tell me to stay alive. Elena hesitated. I'm afraid of you. Good. You should be. But I'm more afraid of what happens if I leave this room and you're found dead tomorrow. Because then the new boss takes over and he won't be as quiet as you. Jae-Hyun's eyes narrowed. Quiet? Is that what you call me? You don't scream when you kill. You don't make a spectacle. That's quiet in this world. He studied her like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. Then slowly, deliberately, he reached for her hand. His palm was warm, calloused, scarred. Stay tonight, he said again.
Not a command this time.
A question. She nodded. What happened next was slow. Careful.
He didn't force. He didn't take.
He asked with every touch, every breath, and when she whispered yes, it felt less like surrender and more like falling. Outside, rain turned to storm. Inside, two people who'd lived in silence found something neither could name. Dawn broke pale and unforgiving. Elena woke to an empty bed and cold sheets. For a moment, she wondered if she'd dreamed it. The vulnerability, the tenderness, the way he'd held her like she was something precious instead of disposable. Then she saw the money on the pillow. Crisp bills folded neatly. Payment. Her stomach twisted. She dressed quickly, hands shaking, and slipped out of his room before anyone could see her. The hallway felt longer than usual. The walls seemed to lean in, judging. In the kitchen, two guards leaned against the counter, coffee steaming in their hands. Boss used her like he uses everyone. One of them laughed. Didn't even last till breakfast. The other guard snorted. Bet she thought she was special. Elena's nails dug into her palms. She kept walking, head down, invisible again. But something inside her had cracked. Not her heart. She'd guarded that too carefully. Something deeper. The last remnant of hope that she mattered. She made it to the servants' bathroom before the nausea hit. Bile burned her throat. She gripped the sink, staring at her reflection, pale, hollow-eyed, marked by a man who didn't even stay to see her wake. Mrs. Yoon found her there 10 minutes later. Child, the older woman said softly, closing the door behind them. What did he do? Nothing I didn't agree to. Elena's voice was flat. Mrs. Yoon had been head housekeeper for 15 years. She'd seen girls come and go. She knew the patterns. She touched Elena's shoulder gently, a motherly gesture in a house devoid of warmth. You're stronger than you think, Mrs. Yoon said. But strength won't protect you here. Elena wiped her mouth, straightened her uniform. I know. If he calls for you again, he won't. Elena met her eyes in the mirror. Men like him don't look back. But 3 weeks later, as Elena stared at the stolen pregnancy test in her trembling hands, she realized how wrong she'd been. Not one line.
2.
Not one heartbeat.
3.
Triplets. Her knees buckled. She sat on the bathroom floor, test clutched in her fist, and felt her entire world collapse. Jae-Hyun's children. Growing inside her. 3 lives that would be targets the moment their existence was known. Mrs. Yoon's voice echoed in her memory. Strength won't protect you here.
No.
But disappearing might. That night, Elena made a choice that would haunt her for 5 years. She opened the mansion's emergency vault, the one she'd discovered while cleaning, the one with the security camera blind spot, and took enough cash to vanish. The red light of the camera blinked in the corner. She froze. Had it seen her? Or was she already a ghost? Outside Jae-Hyun's office, she heard his voice, low and dangerous, negotiating with men who spoke in threats. He was alive. Untouchable. King of his blood-soaked empire. And she was carrying his heirs into the dark. You're pregnant. The clinic nurse's voice was clinical, detached. Elena sat on the examination table, paper crinkling beneath her, staring at the ultrasound screen like it might suddenly make sense. 3 distinct shapes. 3 flickering heartbeats. Triplets, the nurse continued, adjusting her glasses. Approximately 6 weeks. You'll need prenatal vitamins, regular checkups, and I can't come back here. Elena's voice cut through the rehearsed speech. The nurse paused, pen hovering over the chart. I'm sorry. I can't come back. I can't tell anyone.
Can you print the image?
Just 1 copy. The woman's expression shifted, recognition dawning. She'd seen this before. Women who couldn't afford to be mothers. Women running from something. She didn't ask questions. She just printed the ultrasound and slid it across the desk. Elena tucked it into her jacket and left through the back exit. The streets of Seoul pressed in around her as she walked, neon signs bleeding color into puddles, traffic humming its endless song. She'd stolen the money for the test from the grocery budget. Small enough not to be noticed. Large enough to confirm what her body had been screaming for weeks. Mrs. Yoon was waiting in the servants' quarters when Elena returned, hands folded in her lap like a grandmother preparing to deliver bad news. "Sit, child." Elena obeyed, exhaustion settling into her bones. Mrs. Yoon didn't waste time. "You're carrying his children." Not a question. A statement. Elena's silence was answer enough. The older woman sighed, deep and weary. She reached up and pulled down the collar of her uniform, revealing a faded scar across her collarbone, jagged, deliberate. "I had a son once," Mrs. Yoon said quietly. 12 years old. Beautiful boy. He witnessed a gang execution on his way home from school. They killed him 3 days later to keep him quiet. Her fingers traced the scar. "This is what I got when I tried to stop them." Elena's throat tightened. "I've worked in this house for 15 years because I have nowhere else to go. But you," Mrs. Yoon gripped Elena's hands. "You still have a chance. If Jae-Hyun finds out, he'll either lock you away like a prize or use those babies as leverage against his enemies. Either way, you lose. What do I do?" "You disappear. Tonight." Elena shook her head. "He'll find me. He has people everywhere." "Not everywhere. Just Seoul." Mrs. Yoon stood, moving to the small closet. She pulled out a worn duffel bag.
Busan.
"Coastal city, 3 hours by bus. I have a cousin there. She owes me a favor. She'll give you work, no questions." "Mrs. Yoon, I can't ask you to." "You're not asking. I'm telling." She began packing, clothes, toiletries, the emergency cash Elena had hidden under her mattress. The late bus leaves at 2 a.m. Security shift changes at 1:45. That's your window. Elena's hands trembled as she took the bag. "What if he comes after you?" "Let me worry about that." Mrs. Yoon cupped Elena's face, her touch gentle. "You protect those babies. That's all that matters now." At 1:30 a.m., Elena stood in the mansion's kitchen, staring at the emergency vault. The camera in the corner blinked red, steady, watching. She'd cleaned this room 1,000 times. She knew the blind spot was 3 feet to the left, behind the industrial refrigerator. She moved carefully, slipping into the shadow. Her fingers found the keypad. Numbers Mrs. Yoon had whispered earlier, codes the woman had memorized from years of observing without being seen. The vault clicked open.
Cash.
Stacks of it. Jae-Hyun's emergency fund for operations gone wrong, bribes, disappearances. Elena took 5 bundles, enough to survive, not enough to trigger immediate alarm. She tucked them into the lining of her jacket and closed the vault. The camera never saw her face. Outside, Mrs. Yoon was executing her diversion. The smell of smoke drifted through the corridors, small, contained, just enough to pull guards toward the kitchen entrance. Shouts echoed. Footsteps pounded. Elena slipped through the servants' door and into the night. The bus station was nearly empty at this hour. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across cracked tile. Elena bought her ticket with cash, hood pulled low, eyes down. The clerk barely looked at her. She boarded the bus and claimed a seat at the back, away from the few other passengers, a college student with headphones, an elderly man dozing against the window, a woman clutching a bouquet of wilted flowers. As the engine rumbled to life, Elena's phone vibrated in her pocket. Unknown number. But she knew. The screen glowed. "Where are you?" Her finger hovered over the delete button. Outside the window, Seoul's lights began to fade, replaced by darkness and stretches of empty highway. She turned off the phone completely and closed her eyes. The bus pulled away at 2:03 a.m. Behind her, in a mansion overlooking the city, Kang Jae-Hyun stood in his bedroom, staring at a locked door and an unanswered message. Dawn broke over Seoul with the indifference of a city that had seen too much blood. Jae-Hyun hadn't slept. Again. But this time, insomnia had nothing to do with assassination attempts or Yakuza threats. His bedroom door was still locked from the inside. He'd checked it himself at 6 a.m., irritated that Elena hadn't arrived with his morning coffee. When he'd entered the servants' quarters to find her, her bed was made. Her locker was empty. She was gone. Choi Min-woo. His voice cracked through the mansion like a whip. His lieutenant appeared within seconds, crisp suit, sharp eyes, a man who'd survived 5 years at Jae-Hyun's side by being efficient and invisible. Yes, boss. Find her. Min-woo didn't ask who. He'd seen the way Jae-Hyun had looked at the quiet maid. The way he'd kept her employed when others were dismissed for smaller infractions. I'll pull security footage.
Now.
Within the hour, Min-woo returned to Jae-Hyun's office with a tablet. She disappeared sometime after 1:45 a.m. Kitchen fire provided cover. Mrs. Yoon was involved. She's the one who triggered the alarm. Jae-Hyun's jaw tightened. Bring me Mrs. Yoon. The older woman arrived 15 minutes later, flanked by 2 guards but walking with her head high. She'd known this moment would come. Where is she? Jae-Hyun's voice was deceptively calm. Gone. I can see that. Where? Mrs. Yoon met his gaze without flinching. Somewhere you can't hurt her. His fist slammed against the desk. Do you have any idea what you've done? She could be working for my enemies. She could be. She's pregnant. The room went silent. Jae-Hyun stared at the woman as if she'd spoken in a foreign language. What? 6 weeks. Triplets. Mrs. Yoon's voice was steady. She didn't run because she betrayed you. She ran because she's terrified of what you'd do to those children. The words hit like bullets. Jae-Hyun's mind raced. Timelines, possibilities. The night 3 weeks ago when he'd let his guard down for the first time in years. Get out, he said quietly. Sir, Min-woo started. Everyone.
Out.
Now. They obeyed.
The door closed.
Jae-Hyun stood alone in his office, staring at the city through bulletproof glass. Somewhere out there, Elena was carrying his children. 3 lives he didn't know how to protect. 3 lives that made him vulnerable in ways a bullet never could. He picked up his phone and dialed. I need every resource we have, he said when the line connected. Bus stations, train terminals, airports. A woman, mid-20s, traveling alone. Find her. But even as he gave the orders, a part of him wondered if he should find her. If bringing her back would save her or destroy her. Min-woo worked through the night, pulling footage, tracking leads. By morning, he had something. Boss. He entered Jae-Hyun's office with a flash drive. Security camera near the vault. She was careful, but he plugged it in. The screen showed Elena slipping into the blind spot, the vault opening briefly, her silhouette moving quickly before disappearing again. She stole from me. Jae-Hyun's voice was flat. Emergency fund. 5 bundles. Approximately 5 million won. And the clinic? Min-woo pulled up another file. Confirmed. She visited a private clinic in Gangnam 3 days ago. They ran an ultrasound. The staff confirmed triplets. Jae-Hyun leaned back in his chair, mind calculating. She needed money to disappear. To survive. She wasn't stealing. She was escaping. Do we continue the search? If you'd run to protect your children, subscribe to Mystic Tale by Luna, and tell me where you're watching from. Jae-Hyun stared at the frozen image of Elena on the screen, hood pulled low, shoulders tense, hand pressed protectively over her stomach even then. Yes, he said finally. But quietly. I don't want her scared. I want her safe. Min-woo nodded and left. Alone again, Jae-Hyun opened his desk drawer and pulled out a small object, a hairpin Elena had left on his pillow the morning after. Simple, cheap metal shaped like a flower. He'd kept it without knowing why. Now he understood. She'd left a part of herself behind. A ghost he couldn't exorcise. He dialed another number, this one encrypted, routed through 3 countries. I need information on anyone who might use a pregnant woman against me, he said when the line connected. And I need it yesterday. Because if he'd learned anything in 15 years of surviving Seoul's underworld, it was this. Vulnerability was blood in the water. And sharks were always circling. 3 months passed. Then 6. Then a year. Jae-Hyun's men searched bus stations, interviewed clerks, tracked financial records. But Elena had vanished as thoroughly as smoke. No credit cards. No digital footprint. No witnesses who remembered her face. Minwoo stood in the office on the first anniversary of her disappearance, hesitant. Boss, maybe it's time to. Don't. Jae-Hyun's voice was sharp. She doesn't want to be found. We've exhausted every lead. Then find new leads. But even Jae-Hyun knew the truth. Elena was gone. And with her, the children he'd never know. He became colder after that. More isolated. His empire expanded. More territory, more violence, more control. But his bedroom remained empty. His nights remained sleepless. And in a small coastal apartment in Busan, Elena rocked 3 newborns to sleep, whispering promises she prayed she could keep. I'll protect you, she murmured to Jae-Hyun, Min-seo, and Hannah. He'll never find us. You'll never know his world. But even as she spoke the words, she wondered if she was lying to herself. Because men like Kang Jae-Hyun didn't forget. They hunted. And eventually they found. Mommy, why does Min-seo draw scary eyes? Elena looked up from the cafe counter where she was wiping down espresso stains. Hannah stood in the doorway of the back room, clutching her stuffed rabbit, her own eyes wide with 4-year-old curiosity. What do you mean, sweetheart? Hannah held up a crumpled drawing, crayon lines forming a tall figure with sharp, dark eyes that seemed to pierce through the paper. Min-seo's signature scrawl marked the bottom corner. Elena's chest tightened. She knelt down, forcing a smile. It's just his imagination, like when you collect feathers. But Jae-Hyun asked him about it. Min-seo said the man visits him in dreams. The bell above the cafe door chimed. A customer entered. Elena tucked the drawing into her apron pocket and stood. Go play with your brothers, okay? We'll talk about it later. Hannah nodded and skipped away, oblivious to the cold dread settling in her mother's stomach. 5 years. 5 years of hiding, working double shifts, building a quiet life in Busan's coastal anonymity. The triplets were healthy, curious, full of life. Jae-Hyun was serious beyond his years, always watching, always protecting his siblings. Min-seo was clever and playful, solving puzzles meant for children twice his age. Hannah was gentle, collecting feathers she insisted were gifts from guardian angels. They'd never asked about their father. Not directly. But lately, the questions had grown sharper. Mississippi Park. 1 Americano, please. Elena snapped back to the present, smile automatic, hands moving through the familiar routine. This cafe job paid barely enough, but it was safe. The owner, Mr. Han, was a widower who asked no questions and paid in cash. Her second job, tutoring English to elementary students, covered the rest. She'd never remarried, never dated. The memory of one night 5 years ago still haunted her in ways she couldn't articulate. Outside, the ocean crashed against the breakwater. Busan smelled like salt and fish markets and freedom. But today, something felt wrong. A black sedan with Seoul plates had been parked across the street for 2 hours. Tinted windows. Engine idling occasionally. Watching. Elena's hands trembled as she steamed milk. That evening, as she walked the triplets home from the community center, she felt eyes on her back. The black sedan followed 3 blocks behind, keeping distance but never disappearing. Mommy, why are you walking so fast? Jae-Hyun tugged her hand. Just tired, baby. Let's get home. Their apartment was small, 2 bedrooms, a kitchen barely big enough for 4, but it was theirs. Elena locked the door behind them and checked every window while the children changed into pajamas. The sedan was parked outside. She pulled the curtains shut and tried to steady her breathing. Maybe she was paranoid. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She let it go to voicemail. It rang again. And again. On the 4th call, she answered. Elena Park. The voice was male, unfamiliar, speaking Korean with a slight accent. We've been looking for you. Her blood turned to ice. Who is this? Friends of Kang Jae-Hyun. Or rather, people he hurt. We've been watching his old connections for years, waiting for something useful. Imagine our surprise when we found you. I don't know what you're talking about. 3 children. All with his eyes. Very touching. The man's tone turned sharp. You have 2 options. Cooperate and we use you to draw him out. Refuse and we take what we need by force. Minseo appeared in the hallway, rubbing his eyes. Mommy? Who are you talking to? Elena covered the phone. Go back to bed, sweetheart. The voice on the line chuckled. Smart boy. He looks just like his father. She hung up and immediately dialed the only number she'd sworn never to call again. Her hands shook so badly she misdialed twice before getting it right. It rang 4 times. Then, hello? Mrs. Yoon's voice, older now, tired. It's me, Elena whispered. A sharp intake of breath. Child, where are you?
Busan. But they found me.
The Red Lotus Triad.
They're outside my apartment right now.
They know about the children. Mrs. Yoon cursed, a rare break in her usual composure. Listen to me carefully. You need to come back to Seoul. Tonight. Are you insane? That's exactly what they. The mansion is the only place they won't follow you into. Jae-Hyun's territory is still absolute. They wouldn't dare cross that line without starting a full war. Elena's mind raced. He'll kill me. He's been looking for me for 5 years. He stopped looking 3 years ago. And he won't kill you. Mrs. Yoon's voice softened. He's not the same man you left, Elena.
Colder, yes.
More isolated. But he's never touched another woman. Never stopped keeping your room exactly as you left it. That doesn't mean. A brick crashed through the living room window. Glass exploded inward. The children screamed. Elena dropped the phone and ran to them, pulling all 3 into the bedroom and slamming the door. Mommy. Hannah was crying, clutching her rabbit. Jae-Hyun stood in front of his sisters, small fists clenched despite the terror in his eyes. It's okay. I'll protect us. Elena's heart shattered. He was 4 years old, and already trying to be a man. She grabbed her emergency bag, always packed, always ready, and lifted Hannah onto her hip. We're leaving.
Right now.
Don't ask questions, just hold my hands. They fled through the back entrance as footsteps pounded up the front stairs. The alley behind the building was dark, narrow. Elena ran toward the bus station, children stumbling to keep up. Where are we going? Minseo panted. Somewhere safe. Jae-Hyun's voice was small. Are we going to see our dad? Elena didn't answer. She couldn't. The train to Seoul departed at 11 p.m. Elena bought tickets with the last of her cash reserves and herded the children into a private compartment. They were exhausted, frightened, clinging to each other. Try to sleep, she whispered, pulling blankets over their small bodies. But sleep wouldn't come for her. She stared out the window as Busan's lights faded, replaced by darkness and the rhythmic clatter of tracks. With every kilometer, she moved closer to the man she'd spent 5 years running from. The man whose children now slept against her shoulder. The man who'd once held her like she mattered, then paid her like she didn't. Have you ever had to face someone from your past? Comment your experience and where you're watching from. What would he do when he saw them? Would he believe they were his? Would he care? Jae-Hyun stirred, mumbling in his sleep. Scary eyes don't hurt, mommy. Elena stroked his hair, tears burning her throat. Minseo had been drawing Jae-Hyun's face for months. Some genetic echo reaching through blood and dreams, connecting father to son across a distance neither had chosen. The train arrived at Seoul Station at 2 a.m. The city greeted her with neon and noise and the sharp scent of ambition. Nothing had changed. Everything had changed. She carried Hannah and held the boys' hands as they navigated the station. A taxi. An address she'd memorized but never thought she'd use again. The mansion loomed above the city exactly as she remembered, cold, imposing, a fortress built on blood money and broken loyalties. The gate was locked. Security cameras tracked their approach. Elena pressed the intercom button, heart hammering. Static. Then, yes? It's Elena Park. I need to speak with Mrs. Yoon. A long pause. Wait there. 5 minutes stretched into eternity. The children huddled close, sensing her fear. Then the gate clicked open. Mrs. Yoon appeared in the doorway, older but still sharp-eyed. She saw Elena, saw the children, and her expression crumpled.
Oh, child.
You should have come back sooner. Is he here? In a meeting. Arms dealers from China. He won't be finished for another hour. Elena's knees almost buckled with relief. Can we stay? Just until morning. I'll figure something else out. You're not going anywhere. Mrs. Yoon ushered them inside. Guest wing. 3rd floor. I'll bring food and clothes. The mansion was exactly as Elena remembered and completely foreign. The children stared at marble floors, crystal chandeliers, hallways that seemed to stretch forever. This was their father's world, opulent and hollow. Mrs. Yoon settled them into a suite with 3 beds and a bathroom larger than Elena's entire Busan apartment. She brought rice, soup, clean pajamas. He doesn't know you're here yet, the older woman said quietly. I'll tell him in the morning. Give you time to prepare. How do I prepare for this? Mrs. Yoon looked at the triplets, Jae-Hyun already asleep, Min-seo and Hannah eating slowly, exhaustion evident in every movement. You don't, she said. You just survive it. Elena didn't sleep. She sat by the window, watching Seoul's lights, waiting for dawn and the reckoning it would bring. At 6 a.m., footsteps echoed in the hallway. Heavy. Purposeful. A knock at the door. Mississippi Park. Choi Min-woo's voice, carefully neutral. The boss would like to see you. Alone. Elena's mouth went dry. The children. Mrs. Yoon will watch them. Now, please. She followed him through corridors that felt like a maze, each turn taking her deeper into the lion's den. They stopped at a familiar door. Jae-Hyun's office. Min-woo knocked once and opened it. Kang Jae-Hyun stood with his back to the entrance, staring out at the city. 5 years had carved new lines into his posture, shoulders rigid, spine straight, the bearing of a man who'd forgotten how to relax. You have exactly 10 seconds to tell me why I shouldn't kill you. His voice was colder than she remembered. Sharper. The warmth she'd glimpsed once was buried under layers of ice. Elena stepped forward, fists clenched. Because they'll kill your children if I don't stay here. Silence. Jae-Hyun turned slowly. His face was exactly as Min-seo had drawn it, sharp features, dark eyes that missed nothing. But there was something new, something hollow. He looked at her like she was a ghost he couldn't decide whether to embrace or exorcise. Children. The word came out rough. Triplets. Jae-Hyun, Min-seo, and Hannah. They're 4 years old. And they look exactly like you. His jaw tightened. You stole my children. I saved them from your world. That wasn't your choice to make. Yes, it was. Her voice rose despite her fear. You paid me like a prostitute. You never looked back. What was I supposed to think? That you'd suddenly want to be a father? The silence that followed was suffocating. Jae-Hyun's hands curled into fists at his sides, then slowly released. He crossed the room in 3 strides and stopped inches from her. Where are they? Guest wing. Asleep. Show me. She led him through the mansion, Min-woo trailing behind. Every step felt like walking toward an execution. When they reached the suite, Mrs. Yoon stood guard outside. They're resting, sir, she said carefully. Jae-Hyun didn't respond. He opened the door quietly and stepped inside. 3 small figures lay tangled in blankets. Jae-Hyun in the middle, one arm thrown protectively over Hannah. Min-seo curled on the edge, thumb in his mouth. Morning light filtered through curtains, painting them in soft gold. Jae-Hyun froze. For the first time in 5 years, the mask cracked. His eyes widened, then narrowed, cycling through emotions too fast to name. Shock.
Rage.
Wonder.
Grief.
Jae-Hyun stirred, sensing the presence. His eyes opened, dark, sharp, meeting his father's gaze with eerie recognition. Don't yell at my mom, the boy said, voice small but firm. Jae-Hyun stared at his son, at this tiny, fierce creature who bore his face, his defiance, his refusal to back down. Slowly, carefully, he knelt to eye level. You look just like I did, he whispered, before I became a monster. Jae-Hyun frowned. Are you our dad? The question hung in the air, heavy with years of absence and longing neither could name. Jae-Hyun's throat worked. He looked up at Elena, standing in the doorway with tears streaming silently down her face. "Yes," he said finally. "I'm your father." And for the first time in 5 years, Kang Jae-Hyun felt something other than emptiness. He felt terror. "Boss, we have a problem." Choi Min-woo stood in the doorway of Jae-Hyun's office, tablet in hand, expression grim. It was day 3 of Elena's return, and the mansion had settled into an uneasy rhythm. Children exploring under Mrs. Yoon's watchful eye, Elena avoiding Jae-Hyun except during tense dinners, and the man himself struggling to reconcile fatherhood with the violence that defined him. Jae-Hyun looked up from the contracts he'd been pretending to read. "What now?" Red Lotus made contact. "They know Elena's here. They want to negotiate." "There's nothing to negotiate." Min-woo set the tablet down, showing surveillance footage. They're positioned at 3 points around the perimeter. Watching. Waiting. And they sent this. He played a video message. A man in his 50s, scar bisecting his left eyebrow, smiled at the camera with the confidence of someone who'd already won. "Kang Jae-Hyun. I am Chunwei, Red Lotus Operations Director. You destroyed my brothers 5 years ago in Itaewon. Killed 12 men over a territorial dispute you could have negotiated. I've waited patiently for something I could take from you." His smile widened. "Now I have 3 somethings. Pretty little children with your eyes." The video cut off. Jae-Hyun's knuckles went white against the desk edge. Increased security. Triple shifts. No one enters or leaves without clearance. Already done. "But boss," Min-woo hesitated. "They're professionals. If they want in, they'll find a way." "Then we don't give them a reason to try." "Where are the children now?"
Garden.
Mrs. Yoon is supervising. Jae-Hyun stood abruptly and strode toward the east wing. Min-woo followed, phone already in hand, coordinating with the security team. The garden was deceptively peaceful. Manicured hedges, koi pond, stone pathways designed by a landscape architect who'd never seen violence. Hannah crouched by the water's edge, fingers trailing through lily paths. Min-seo climbed a cherry tree despite Mrs. Yoon's protests. Ji-hoon stood apart, watching his siblings with the same protective intensity Jae-Hyun recognized from mirrors. "Down from there, young man," Mrs. Yoon called up to Min-seo. "If you fall and crack your head." "I won't fall. I'm good at climbing." That's what they all say before gravity teaches them humility. Jae-Hyun approached quietly. Ji-hoon noticed first, body tensing, positioning himself between his father and sisters. The boy had barely spoken to him in 3 days. Barely looked at him. "I'm not going to hurt them," Jae-Hyun said. "That's what scary people always say." Fair assessment. Jae-Hyun knelt, meeting his son's gaze at eye level. "You're right to protect them. That's what family does." "You don't know anything about family." The words cut deeper than intended. Ji-hoon's face immediately showed regret, but he didn't apologize. Just held his ground. "You're right about that too," Jae-Hyun admitted. "But I'm learning." Before Ji-hoon could respond, Hannah appeared at Jae-Hyun's elbow, startling both of them. She held out a black feather, perfectly intact. "For you," she said simply. "The angels said you need protection." Jae-Hyun took the feather, something uncomfortable shifting in his chest. "Thank you. Do you believe in angels?"
No.
"That's sad." Hannah tilted her head, studying him. "Mommy says everyone has a guardian angel. Even bad people. Maybe especially bad people, because they need more help." From the tree, Min-seo called down. "Are you a bad person?" 3 pairs of eyes fixed on Jae-Hyun, waiting. Mrs. Yoon watched from a distance, hand pressed to her heart. "Yes," Jae-Hyun said. "I've done terrible things. Hurt people who didn't deserve it. Built everything you see around you on fear and blood. Then why should we stay here?" Ji-hoon's voice trembled slightly. "Because right now I'm the only thing standing between you and worse people. And because," he stopped, throat tight, "because I want to be better."
For you.
Min-seo climbed down from the tree, dropped to the ground with a thud, and walked over. He stared at Jae-Hyun with unsettling intensity. "I've been dreaming about you since I was little," the boy said. "You were always in a dark room, looking sad. Mommy said it was just my imagination, but I knew you were real. Jae-Hyun's hands clenched. What else did you dream? That you were looking for us. That you were angry Mommy took us away. But also… Min-seo frowned, searching for words. Also lonely. The assessment was too accurate. Too raw. Get inside, Jae-Hyun said abruptly, standing. All of you. Now. Mrs. Yoon sensed the shift in his tone. Children, let's go. Snack time. They obeyed, though Jae-Hyun threw one last distrustful look over his shoulder. When they were gone, Jae-Hyun turned to Minwoo. I want surveillance on every delivery, every vendor, every person who comes within 100 meters of this property. And get Elena. We need to talk. Elena sat across from Jae-Hyun in his office, arms crossed defensively. They'd barely spoken since her arrival. Logistics through Mrs. Yoon, terse exchanges during meals, careful avoidance of anything real. The Red Lotus knows we're here, he said without preamble. They're planning something. Her face went pale. When? I don't know. But they're patient. Professional. They'll wait for the perfect moment. So, what do we do? You stay here. Don't leave the mansion. Don't let the children out of your sight. We can't hide forever. We don't have to. Just long enough for me to eliminate the threat. Elena leaned forward. You mean kill them? I mean protect my children. They wouldn't be in danger if you weren't. She stopped herself, but the words hung anyway. If I wasn't a monster? Jae-Hyun finished coldly. You're right. But I can't change what I am, Elena. I can only control what I do next. And what's that? Murder an entire gang? Create more enemies? This is why I ran. This is exactly why. Why didn't you tell me? The question derailed her momentum. She stared at him, emotions warring across her face. Because you paid me like a whore, she said finally, voice breaking. Because you didn't even stay to see me wake up. Because I was terrified you'd either lock me away or use our babies as weapons. And I couldn't let them grow up in this. Jae-Hyun's jaw worked. I didn't know what that night meant. No one had ever. He stopped, frustration evident. I'm not good at this. At feelings. At being human. Then learn. Because they deserve better than a father who only knows violence. I'm trying. The admission came out rough. Every time Jae-Hyun looks at me like I'm a stranger, every time Hannah offers me one of her feathers, every time Min-seo draws my face, I'm trying. Silence stretched between them, fragile and heavy. I never stopped thinking about you, Elena whispered. 5 years. I told myself I hated you. But every time the children asked about their father, I remembered the way you held me that night. Like I mattered. Like I was more than invisible. Before Jae-Hyun could respond, the office door burst open. Minwoo, phone pressed to his ear, face ashen. Boss. They have Min-seo. The world stopped. It happened during a supply delivery. A truck carrying groceries, vetted, approved, familiar. But the driver had been replaced. The guard at the gate had been bribed. And in the 60 seconds between entering the compound and reaching the kitchen, someone had grabbed Min-seo from the garden. Security footage showed it all. A man in a delivery uniform, moving fast, hand over the boy's mouth. Min-seo struggling, kicking, then going limp, chloroformed. The man disappearing through a service entrance that shouldn't have been unlocked.
Inside job.
One guard paid off. One moment of weakness. And now Min-seo was gone. Elena collapsed when they told her, animal sounds tearing from her throat. Jae-Hyun and Hannah clung to Mrs. Yoon, both crying. The mansion erupted into controlled chaos, guards mobilizing, weapons distributed, every resource activated. But Jae-Hyun stood utterly still in the center of the storm, staring at the frozen image of his son being carried away. Boss. Minwoo's voice was careful. We have a location. Warehouse in Incheon. Red Lotus territory. They're waiting for you. It's a trap. Of course it's a trap. But they have Min-seo. Jae-Hyun turned to Elena, who was shaking so hard Mrs. Yoon had to support her. Their eyes met across the chaos, and something passed between them. understanding without words. "I'll bring him back," Jae-Hyun said. "Promise me." Elena's voice was raw. "Promise me you'll bring my baby back. I promise. Even if it kills me." He loaded his weapons with methodical precision. Glock 19. Backup knife. Body armor. Minwoo assembled a team, 12 men, all loyal, all willing to die. But Jae-Hyun knew this wasn't about numbers. It was about one father against an organization that wanted him broken. Before leaving, he knelt in front of Jae-Hyun. The boy's face was streaked with tears, small fists clenched. "I'm going to get your brother," Jae-Hyun said quietly. "What if they kill you? Then Minwoo will take care of you. And your mother. And Hannah. I've made arrangements." "I don't want arrangements." Ji-hoon's voice cracked. "I want Min-seo back. I want us to be safe. I want—" He threw himself at Jae-Hyun, small arms wrapping around his neck. "I want you to come back too." Jae-Hyun held his son for the first time, feeling the tiny heartbeat against his chest, and made a choice. He would burn the world to ash before losing this. The warehouse was abandoned, industrial, perfect for an ambush. Jae-Hyun's convoy arrived at midnight, headlights cutting through fog rolling off the bay. They parked a block away and approached on foot, weapons ready. "Spread out," Jae-Hyun ordered quietly. 3 teams. "Cover all exits. Anyone not us, shoot first." They moved like shadows through rusted machinery and stacked containers. Then, in the center of the warehouse, under a single hanging bulb, they found Min-seo. The boy sat tied to a chair, tape over his mouth, eyes wide with terror but unharmed. Behind him, Chun-wei and 6 armed men waited. Kang, Jae-Hyun. Chen's voice echoed, punctual as always. "Let him go." "In a moment. First, we talk about reparations. 5 years ago, you killed my brothers over a shipping route. Now I want—" Jae-Hyun shot him in the shoulder before he finished. The sound cracked through the warehouse. Chun staggered, gasping. "I didn't come here to negotiate," Jae-Hyun said coldly. "I came for my son." Chaos erupted. Gunfire exploded from all sides. Jae-Hyun's men engaged Red Lotus reinforcements hidden in the shadows. Bullets tore through metal, ricocheting off concrete. Jae-Hyun moved through it like death itself, focused on one thing, Min-seo. He took 3 bullets, shoulder, side, thigh, but didn't stop. Reached the chair, cut the ropes, pulled the tape gently from his son's mouth.
"Dad."
Min-seo's voice was small, terrified. "I've got you." He lifted the boy, shielding him with his body. An explosion rocked the building, C4, set as insurance. The structure groaned, metal beams twisting. Fire bloomed in the corners. "Minwoo!" Jae-Hyun shouted into his comm, "Fall back." Buildings coming down. He ran through smoke and flame, Min-seo pressed tight against his chest. The boy was crying, hands gripping his father's jacket. Behind them, the warehouse collapsed in a screaming cascade of steel and fire. They made it out with seconds to spare, stumbling into the parking lot as the building imploded. Jae-Hyun fell to his knees, still holding Min-seo, blood soaking through his clothes. "Are you okay?" he gasped. "Did they hurt you?" Min-seo shook his head, then wrapped his arms around Jae-Hyun's neck. "You came. You really came. Always." Jae-Hyun's vision blurred.
"For you. For all of you."
"Always." Minwoo appeared, pulling them toward the vehicles. "Boss, we need medical. You're bleeding out. Get him home first. Make sure he's safe. You're both going to the hospital." The world tilted. Jae-Hyun felt himself being loaded into a vehicle, Min-seo refusing to let go, small voice whispering, "Don't die, Dad.
Please don't die."
And in that moment, bleeding, exhausted, finally understanding what it meant to have something worth living for, Kang Jae-Hyun made another choice. He would survive.
Because his children needed him to.